So, Fire Emblem Three Houses. It's a game that I've only beat on the hardest difficulty one time, and whenever I went back to replay it, I always had trouble finding the motivation to finish it. With the painfully long monastery sections and the huge dip in difficulty around the mid-game, I just easily got distracted. So today I wanted to attempt a 0% gross playthrough of the game, a playthrough where I wouldn't gain any stats on level ups to see if an increase in difficulty would equate to a more fun experience. Just to let you know, I will be using the DLC characters because I've never used them before, but I will not use any other part of the DLC, like the Chalice of Beginnings or the stat boosters. So with that done, let's start the run. But first, I'd really appreciate if you like the video and subscribe. I start the game by selecting female Byleth because that will allow me to recruit Sylvain early, who is pretty good. Anyway, we now begin the first map. For this map, I mainly just baited out the enemy units and then finished off the group with a combination of combat arts. Since I was planning to do the Crimson Flower route, I was mainly trying to feed kills to Byleth and Edelgard, as while they won't gain stats on level ups, we can gain stats by class changing, so EXP still matters, just a little less than a traditional playthrough. So I now place Byleth in the evasive terrain to bait out Costas, and I kill him on player phase with a shot from Claude and a Wrath Strike from Byleth. After skipping some cutscenes, we select a house of the Fire Emblem Three Houses, and as I said before, I picked the Black Eagles. After experiencing peak gameplay, I dress up all my students in the silliest outfits I could find, and I begun Chapter 1. For this map, I placed Byleth in a forest to bait out Lorenz, and I also placed Bernadetta to bait out Ashe. Here she takes damage, activating her personal skill for the extra 5 damage. I now kill Lorenz with Byleth and Bernadetta, and then Petra kills Ashe, leaving only Ignatz alive for enemy phase. But he can't kill anyone, and I take him out on the next turn. My squad now heads west to fight Claude and Hilda. I use a curse shot to make them move, and I bait them out with Bernadetta, and I easily finish them off on the next turn. I now advance towards Manuela, who isn't that threatening, and Byleth kills her. Suddenly, the blue lines begin to move, so I place Byleth in range to fight Dedue, and I position Edelgard to retaliate on Mercedes. Here I realized that Dedue is pretty strong, and with Dimitri coming from the right, the spaces I could safely attack from was limited. Fortunately, I got saved by a crit from Petra. On the next turn, I attacked Mercedes with Petra to kill her, and I noticed that Dimitri doubles like my whole team, so in order to avoid a game over, I run away with Edelgard and Byleth, and Dimitri kills Bernadetta. Fortunately, units don't die on this map, so it doesn't matter. I now send in a suicidal Petra to weaken Dimitri just enough that Byleth can come in and get the kill. Hanaman was now the only unit remaining who died to an attack from Byleth into an attack from Edelgard. In the monastery, I now head into the Abyss to recruit Yuri, and just him, as if I wait until next chapter, Bolfus, Happy, and Constance will gain useful skill ranks, with Bolfus gaining a D rank in bows, making it easier to obtain hit plus 20 from Archer, and Constance and Happy will reclass to Monk, giving a boost from E to D in Faith. Here we can start tutoring our units, so here I'll just explain what I plan to do with each student. For Edelgard, I plan to make her a Wyvern, and the 2 skills I want to pick up are Hit plus 20 and Death Blow, to synergize with her overpowered personal combat art post-time skip, Raging Storm. On Hubert, I initially wanted to pick up his budding talent in Lances to obtain Frozen Lance, for a more accurate magical attack. Then I plan to make use of his nice utility magics like Banshee to restrict movement and Maya for the extra range. Then, when he fell off, I plan to make him a Wyvern and use him as an adjutant for Edelgard, as that will boost her damage. I didn't really use Ferdinand, and for Linhardt, I did a basic build of just focusing on Faith for his nice spell list of Physics and Warp. Casper is another unit I didn't use. Bernadetta was a unit that I initially wanted to obtain a C+ in Lance rank to pick up Vengeance, an extremely powerful combat art that even in a 0% gross playthrough would allow me to one-shot units. I also focused on axes and bows to pick up 2 very universal skills with hit plus 20 on Archer and Death Blow on Brigand. In the long term, I wanted to make her a Bow Knight, but that didn't really go as planned. And for the final students, Dorothea, Petra, and Yuri, I didn't plan to use them long term, so their builds aren't really relevant. Okay, so now we are forced to do an easy skirmish map. This map is fairly easy, so let's not waste too much time on it. I mainly just use Yuri, Byleth, and Edelgard to lead the charge, and then just use my mages and Bernadetta to help clean up. Without too much trouble, I end up winning, and we move on to Chapter 2. I would say this is our first real map, and I begin it by unequipping Bernadetta's weapon and baiting out the archer. With a few combat arts, we take out this archer, leaving just this axe unit remaining, who was simple to deal with. The next group I fight was this one with the 2 thieves and an archer. To help create some space, I chose to use a gambit with Edelgard here, and it landed, leaving the thief and the archer with reduced stats and the inability to move. Bernadetta could now safely take out this thief, and I killed the archer with Byleth and Linhardt. Next up were these 3 units who were simple to handle with some combat arts and an effective use of a gambit. Now enemies rushed down from the north, with them generally speaking being pretty easy to dispatch. After killing the group of the archer and the 2 axe fighters, I moved left and I planned to head up. By employing the same strategies we have employed before, I pushed up and now I had an open path towards the boss. I baited them out with Byleth, then I blasted him with a flurry of ranged attacks with most of my army, then I secured the kill with a Wrath Strike from Byleth. With that now done, I go into the Abyss to recruit Happy, Constance and Bolfus, as they now have class changed and gained a few ranks in proficiencies I care about. Also, I meant to recruit Sylvain on the previous map, but due to me forgetting about him, I didn't, so I did that now. Okay, so now let me tell you what I'm going to do with my new units. Happy will be aiming to be a Grimoire and is focusing on Reason and Faith for the nice utility spells with Banshee in Reason, and Physics and Warp in Faith. Sylvain will be rushing Lance rank to obtain Swift Strikes to become a capable Paladin, and to complement this playstyle he will be training in Bows and Axes to pick up 2 very universal skills, Hit plus 20 and Death Blow. For Bolfus, I want to make use of his personal skill, so I plan to pick up Vantage from Mercenary, Wrath from Warrior, as well as Defiant Strength from Hero, as well as Hit plus 20 to improve this build's consistency. As for the final unit, Constance, I didn't really use her, so now let's move on to Chapter 3. This map is a Fog of War map, and that is notable because it makes the map quite annoying, because of the archers who can come out of nowhere and deal significant damage. Fortunately, on this map we gain access to the extremely overpowered Stride Gambit that will eventually make this game ridiculously easy. Anyway, I start this map by using a torch to light a path forward, then I send most of my units north to fight the units up there. Meanwhile, a few of my weaker units try to keep the green units alive to receive the additional rewards. Now I got into a little trouble in the north, with the Archer and Mercenary, but by landing a Gambit, Edelgard was safe, and we used a combat art to kill them on the following turn. Sylvain and Bolfus now baited out a few units near Catherine, and swiftly dispatched them, clearing away to the Dark Mage that a green unit attacked, causing them to move. My hit rates were unimpressive against the Dark Mage, so I had Edelgard lure him out of the forest to help take him out and remove the fog. From here, the map is significantly easier, as we can't really be surprised from enemies in the fog anymore, and I just steadily clear a way up to this group of units that with my mages were pretty easy to kill. With the boss Lenato, I blast him with Maya to lower his defense, and I chip him from a distance with Happy, Bernadetta and Edelgard. Now I just finish him off with Byleth to beat the chapter. In the monastery, I ended up recruiting Annette to receive the benefits of her rallies, with rally strength and rally speed being the most useful. Also, while I'm here, I should probably mention that in the greenhouse, I'm mainly planting mixed herb seeds for the chance to receive the strength stat booster Rocky Burdock. I plan to save all of these stat boosters until I reclass around level 20, so it's important to mention but they aren't going to help right now. On chapter 4, I let Bernadetta take damage on turn 1 to both activate her personal skill and to weaken her low enough to make good use of Vengeance, that she has recently learned. A combat art that boosts damage by 1 for every HP lost. And in case you can't tell, this is outrageously strong, and even with a weak training lance, she can one-shot most units on this map. Anyway, for this map I ended up splitting my army into 2 squads, with one heading left and another heading right. On the right I was mainly relying on Bolfus, who with his personal skill achieves high enough defense to literally take 0 damage. And his personal skill also improved his player phase, making him the main carry on the right side. On the left, I didn't have an equally powerful unit that should easily fight enemy after enemy on enemy phase, but I did have some strong player phase units, like my mages, as well as Bernadetta, who can deal high amounts of damage at a distance thanks to her personal skill, and also deal an insane amount of damage at one range with Vengeance. So with these 2 fairly effective squads, I could obtain the treasure in both chests, as well as easily fight most of the units. And when I said most, I mean most, as the mage reinforcements were really hard to deal with, as they were tanky enough to survive most single instances of damage, and they doubled like every unit I had, so I couldn't really fight them on enemy phase. So I baited them out with Hubert, one of my only units that could survive them, and surprisingly one of the mages split up, allowing me to kill the 2 mages. I now baited out the remaining mage, killed them, then I swooped in to clear out the units near the boss. And I tried to stride over to the Death Knight to kill him, but I was nowhere near close to killing him. And since he one-rounds every unit I've got, I had to leave him alive, so I just hit the boss with Bolfus and Bernie to secure the kill and beat the chapter. I now go do the training quests for a little more EXP, as they are overall very easy, so I'm not going to talk much about this. The only thing noteworthy about this experience is Bernadetta reaches level 10, allowing her to reclass to Archer, giving her a massive stat boost. Okay, it's pretty bad, but at least she has an extra point of move and is working towards a good mastery skill with hit plus 20. With that done, I attempt Chapter 5, which is probably my least favorite map in the game because of just how slow it plays. I begin this map by moving out of the starting area to avoid getting pressured by the reinforcements. While doing this, I take out the first group of units. Eventually, the reinforcements show up and they attack Gilbert. It seemed like he'd die from another enemy phase, so I used physics to heal him up with Linhardt, while my other units fight this thief and kill him, and Bernadetta gets weakened to almost 1 HP, allowing her to unleash the full power of vengeance. I now just keep healing Gilbert, and it allows him to survive until the next wave of reinforcements show up that just kill him. Anyway, by utilizing my strong player phase units like Bernadetta, I cleared out the reinforcements from behind, and I began to move up, with exactly Bolfus, who I moved past this broken pillar, as he was my only unit I was confident enough to manage the thief reinforcements that show up by himself. I lured one of them down with Sylvain to kill them, and Bolfus and Bernadetta were fine handling the others. I continued moving, mainly relying on Bolfus to lure enemies in, and I used gambits to stay safe. With some cautious plays, I killed all the units on the way to the boss, who with the recall damage was simple enough to beat. We now skip one of Frey Houses' beautiful cutscenes before being faced with a demonic beast. I baited him out with Bernadetta, and I followed up on the next turn by using gambits to break his armor, and then I realized that I don't do much damage. Fortunately, we have Bernadetta, and she used a huge vengeance to finish off the beast's first HP bar. I then weakened the second with a ruptured sky, and now the beast regained its ability to counterattack, so I had to use a gambit to avoid a counter and force them to attack Sylvain. Then I took out the second HP bar with another vengeance, and next I continued to weaken with Byleth. Then all it took was another gambit from Annette, a curved shot from Bernie, and a smash from Edelgard to end the map. Because we have recruited Sylvain, we can refuse to return the Lance of Ruin, allowing us to access it early, and with its outrageous might, I will definitely find a use for it. In the monastery, we can now recruit Shamir, who has incredible stats for her joining level, and will make for a great addition to our team. Also, tea time. Every month, any student we want can gain a maximum of 2 charm by utilizing this. It's a pretty silly minigame that I don't really want to do, but it is technically a somewhat free stat booster, so I just did it with a unit that I thought would benefit the most from it, being Bolfus, as he will be frontlining and the extra charm would be nice to avoid some gambits. I now end up doing another one of these extra battles that don't really matter, just for a little bit more EXP. Again, nothing interesting happens here, and we now take on Chapter 6. I start this map by sending Shamir to bait out the archer towards the left. Next I moved in with a Blaze Gambit to help clear out these units. I now let Bernadetta get hit on enemy phase to activate her lowered HP gimmicks, allowing her to nuke with Vengeance, allowing for me to aggressively push into the next formation of units, with the help of Pass. Now Shamir takes the secret-ish route to the right, to enter the room with the 2 Cavs and the archer. And with an Annette rally and a kill to activate her personal skill, she destroys that room of units. My other units now open the door, and then I realize that I don't have a door key or another chest key, so I have to run back as I can't progress from here. And I will also have to pick between the 2 chests, with one having a Levin sword that I don't really care about, and the other having a March ring which gives the equipped unit an extra point of move, that I actually want. Anyway, Shamir swiftly handles the middle room of units, both from a distance and up close, then Annette and Bolfus fight the knight to allow me to pick up the aforementioned March ring. Now I open the door to the Death Knight and kill him with a Knight Kneeler with the Lance of Ruin, ending the chapter. Now I decided to attempt the Sylvain Paralogue, where we split into 3 squads, with 2 squads containing about 5 units, and the third entirely being comprised of Shamir, who is strong enough to solo the entire top part of the map. My squad to the right attempts to push up to block the thieves from escaping, and my squad to the left tries to run towards the right with a gambit to block the lower path to prevent the thieves from escaping. Unfortunately, my units are not very good, and I literally just have to run away to survive, and I managed to clear out the units on the following turn. With Bolfus and less enemy density, my other squad was having a much easier time, and they were already fighting the units on the stronghold, that I quickly realized isn't worth killing, as the thieves literally don't attack you. Sylvain was now forced to be in a somewhat unfortunate situation, as some of the thieves will escape this turn if he does not block the lower escape tile, but this will cause him to die if he does not dodge about 1 of 3 50% chances to hit him. He ends up surviving and then blows up an adjacent mercenary with the Lance of Ruin. With that done, the objective of defeating the thieves was easy to achieve as they don't attack, and the remaining units on the map were quite simple to fight. So from here I just slowly ran right to route the map and complete the paralogue. Just before Chapter 7 I did another easy skirmish map, and it was easy, so let's move on to Chapter 7. On this map, the 3 houses fight each other, which is good for me, as it means that Claude and Dimitri will kill each other, allowing me to swoop in and clean up. I start this chapter by baiting out Ignatz on the right, and killing him with a gambit combined with Happy. To the left, I used a stride to push into the armored units to dispatch them, but when Leone and Ingrid begin to move, I realized that it would be best to just run away and let them fight among themselves. This caused the opposing armies to amass a large amount of morale boosts, but just as planned they attacked each other, softening themselves up, allowing me to stride in and strike down both Ingrid and Leone. Alone Hilda was no problem, and now I just had the position to fight Claude's group that actually got triggered to move. Fortunately, I engaged them with a gambit, weakening them and allowing the frail Lysithea to fall to an attack, the magically frail Raphael to fall to magic, and the powerful Claude to die to a mighty Lance of Ruin vengeance. After killing a defenseless Marianne, I bait out Dimitri, blast him with magic from free range, land a debilitating gambit, and end the map with a vengeance. Now I did another unnoteworthy skirmish, and I followed it up with oil and water. That was too hard, so instead I go do the much easier Lorenz paralogue. This map is usually very easy to cheese if you have a flyer, but if you were to take a look at my squad you would realize that I don't have one. So I have to do this map the somewhat normal way. First I send a squad down. I initiate this push with Bolfus, who lands a gambit to make it easy to push down. I then support him with the Impregnable Wall gambit, making him take 1 damage on enemy phase, allowing him to survive. While doing this, Felix 1-rounds a unit with the help of an Annette rally. With a large group of units approaching the North Seas tile, I had to either kill them or block them. So I decided to back off with Shamir, Felix and Bernadetta, then make them almost invincible with an Impregnable Wall. This created enough space that Edelgard, Lorenz and Bolfus could dispatch some units to the south, as well as to allow Byleth to hold some units off with a Blaze Gambit. After surviving enemy phase, I knew there was no way I would survive for another turn, so I used Stride, Bolfus and Lorenz to clear a way across the bridge. Afterwards, Annette rallied Edelgard, allowing her to attack the boss, and with a proc of her crest, she one-shot him, allowing us to beat the chapter. I now did this map and forgot to record it, but because I have played too much Fire Emblem Engage, I forgot that you need chest keys to open chests, so I just decided to reset as the chest contained a stat booster. I begin my actual attempt at this map by using Stride to quickly push towards the initial group of villagers, to make the starting area secure. The only exception to this was this one here, that I just froze in place with Banshee. On the next turn I had Edelgard, Sylvain and Shamir head over to rescue the villager, then in the next few turns Shamir moved to open the chest. Then on the right I used Happy to help another villager, and with a gambit Bernadetta should help another one. With 4 villagers rescued, I was confident that rescuing the others would be more trouble than it's worth, so I gave up on that objective, and instead focused my efforts on reaching the boss, which first means killing the units in this choke point. When they die, I used a stride to reach Tomas and swap with him, but Solon doesn't appear until enemy phase, where he kills me, so I had to use a Divine Pulse. By moving down a little, I got him to appear, and Geralt charged in, eager to kill him. I followed up on this by striding in Bernadetta, who killed him, and I beat the chapter. On Felix's paralogue, I spent about 2 hours trying to play the map the intended way, before getting angry at the stupid same turn reinforcements and the terrible green unit AI. So after my failures, I figured out a cheese strategy that would actually work. I started with Edelgard and Happy demobilizing 2 units to the north. Immediately after, Byleth comes in with a Blaze Gambit to prevent any units around her from moving, then Shamir secures an easy kill and gets danced. She now attacks the grappler, weakening him just low enough that she can get the kill on enemy phase. After clearing out the units near Edelgard, I quickly rush towards the boss. Meanwhile, Bolfus uses a Blaze to help the green units on the right side of the map. With the mercenary near the boss eliminated, I open the door and prepare to rush in with a stride. Accidentally, I now killed off Lysithea, as she is my mission assist unit, and I thought the upside of that was that those units don't die if you kill them. Turns out that assumption was wrong, and she can no longer be recruited. Oops. Anyway, Edelgard now rushes in with a gambit, weakening the boss, enough that Shamir can kill the boss in 2 attacks. On the Flayn and Setiv paralogue, we have a single objective of reaching level 20 with Edelgard, so we can make her a wyvern and cheese the rest of the game. Anyway, during my first turn, I use a stride to advance towards the assassin and land a blaze on him, allowing some of my ranged units and Edelgard to clean up. After surviving an enemy phase thanks to the Aegis shield, I dispose of the mage, use a gambit with Setiv, and bait out another unit. With good player phase play, the next part of the map was fairly easy, but Setiv was having a hard time on the left, so I sent him back to both heal and to help out Bernadetta against the assassin. When he was healed, I just had him attack the boss in the islands, kill them, and now enemies were trying to escape. I actually forgot this happened, and it almost looked like the lower boss would escape, but with Banshees, Happy kept her in place long enough to kill her. Now, the final few mages were not really a threat, allowing Byleth to secure the kill and beat the map. On Chapter 9, Edelgard has been reclassed to a wyvern that has significantly boosted her stats, and she is now allowed to fly, making her my current best unit. She showcases her immense power by critting the first demonic beast, allowing me to swiftly finish them off. Another showcase of Edelgard's prowess is here, where the units I had sent towards the left were unable to fight the demonic beast, but with a stride, Edelgard came in to save the day with her great damage, and even Kanto's back in range to assist my other squad. With Banshee, I kept this beast in place, giving another showcase of how strong Edelgard is, as she almost single-handedly kills another beast. And then Kanto's in range of another. Geralt now charges in, but I wasn't worried at all. I mean, Edelgard's in range. Even 3 demonic beasts at once were not a problem. I just had to kill one with Edelgard, block the other with Edelgard, gambit down the armor on the third, allowing for a safe enemy phase. Then, with a swift strike with Sylvain, I finished off the final demonic beast. And I was left wondering, how could Edelgard get any stronger? And then the game gave me a suggestion. Okay, so apparently Edelgard doesn't gain any more base strength from promo to Wyvern Lord, so I'm safe to dump all of my strength stat boosters on her, and I mean all 13 Rocky Burdocks and the 2 energy drops. So now Edelgard is a hideous monster with 40 strength, and she showcases this in a tournament where she literally just one-shots all of her opponents. Now I do the Sophist Paralog, where I must employ the use of a Guard Adjutant to make it impossible to die to follow-up attacks, or Byleth will immediately die. My other squad uses ranged attacks to drop the wolf's armor while Balthus sets his sights on a chest with a knowledge gem. Byleth now kills the wolf and gets healed to make use of her Guard Adjutant, while Shamir baits out the Fire Emblem 3 birds with a curved shot. I did this not anticipating the birds to move, but they do. But Marianne's cracked, and dodges 3 of the 4 attacks that attack into her. Now I stride and immediately head right out the boss, and use gambits to weaken their armor. To survive enemy phase, I break the birds with gambits, and I use Blaze and Banshee to guarantee Byleth's survival. After an enemy phase passes, I break the boss's armor, and begin a devastating assault with Edelgard, who almost one-shots him with her combat arts. Unfortunately, Edelgard was just short of the kill, so I just had to attack with Bernadetta, who secured the kill. On Shamir and Aloysius Paralog, we have a very easy time, because if we really wanted to, we could beat the map in a single turn, but I chose to get a little bit of EXP by using some gambits to stall for turns, and to take out a few units. Then on turn 3, I stride Edelgard, and she runs up to the boss and one-shots them with a training axe. I now attempt the Ingrid and Dorothea Paralog, and this map is fairly standard. I just use the overpowered Edelgard to clean up, gambits to hold units in place, and the occasional use of Vengeance to nuke strong opponents. I kept pushing right to avoid a large amount of reinforcements that spawn if you head straight down, but I still get jumped by reinforcements because I moved near this chest too soon, and a group with a warrior came in and killed Dorothea. So I took my time, and with Balthus and Edelgard, I pushed towards this guy on the stronghold to kill him, and stop the reinforcements. From here, I just had to push straight down, kill the archers, abuse Vengeance, and position carefully with Ingrid to trigger the reinforcements. Then with a well-positioned Marianne, I danced Ingrid to the escape tile to clear the map. Next up was the Ash Paralog, which is an annoying map as it features frustrating fog. I tackled this map by rallying up Edelgard using his stride and lighting a torch to expose one of the reinforcement spawning bosses, who Edelgard attacks for lethal damage, and subsequently canters away to fight some of the flyers. On the other side of the map, I utilize a Deadeye to weaken the other reinforcement spawning boss, while my additional units clear out the initially visible units. After an enemy phase, I demolish one of the commanders with Bernie, then I fight off the assassins, and Edelgard fails to distract the Cavs, which causes me to make a mistake, and Rhea attacks one of the flyers. So I used a Divine Pulse to position more carefully, and I swapped Rhea out of range to attack the flyers, because even her attacking causes you to lose the rewards. Anyway, the flyers were now looking frustrating to deal with, but with a well-timed gambit, I thwarted their plans, and now only 2 enemy groups remained, the Knight and the Mages. Both groups were not that hard, and we now finished the map. After being satisfied with the amount of paralogs I've done, I move on to Chapter 10, another fairly simple map. With Stride I moved towards the right, and I held a demonic beast in place with a Banshee. Then Byleth positions to bait out the Cavaliers on enemy phase, and survives with a Guard Adjutant. Now I just clean up, and bait out another group of units, and yet again they were fairly easy to dispatch. Another demonic beast moved in, and then another to the south, but again it isn't enough. And Edelgard mercilessly destroys them both, leaving only the boss Cronia remaining, who attacks from a forest, making her almost impossible to hit. So we use a gambit to pull her out and finish her off. On the second part of the map, Byleth's hair color changes, which is honestly the most notable part about the second part of the map, as I just warp Edelgard up to Solon and one-shot him. With the time skip coming up, I decided to grind out a few skills on a skirmish map, allowing a few of my units to gain some useful skills, as well as Byleth achieving a B+ rank in axes, allowing her to reclass to warrior to obtain Wrath for a Wrath Vantage build. I now cheese the Ignatz and Raphael Paralog with Stride and Edelgard, as she just hits the boss on turn 1 and one-shots them, ending the map. After grinding a few more skills, I do the oil and water paralog that I pretty much beat in the same way as the previous paralog, just use stride and my dancer to cheese the map on like the second turn. In case you have not realized, I have reached the point in the game where I can just cheese literally every map in the game if we have Edelgard, who leaves on this map. Anyway, to beat this map, I need Hunter's Volley on Shamir, who was about to obtain it, so I used Gambits to allow her to push up, secure a few kills, and learn the powerful combat art, Hunter's Volley, a tool that allows her to attack twice. And by rallying her up and activating her personal skill, we can see the full potential of the skill, as she one-shots Edelgard, ending the map on turn 2. In this cutscene, I decide I should protect Edelgard as she has stolen all of my stat boosters, and it would be a waste not to use her. Now we progress to the final map before the time skip, and it is slightly harder to cheese than the previous maps as you have to defeat the Fire Emblem 3 bosses before the victory condition appears. Anyway, I start this map by sending Edelgard to the right to obliterate an armored unit, while to the left I send a small squad to advance towards Gilbert to kill him quickly. The flyers were a little annoying, but with guard adjutants their offensive stats were manageable, and I could finish them off on the next turn. Edelgard now begins her assault on the right fort by one-shotting Flane, causing the Death Knight and a regular knight to appear. While the Death Knight is pretty strong as he can actually help out, Ladisava is bad, and she causes Gilbert to move. Fortunately, Sylvain is really strong as he can freely use some of the more expensive lances, since at the end of this map their durability will be restored. After killing Setif, my units on the right move next to where Rhea will appear, and I kill Gilbert to spawn Rhea in. Edelgard now gets rallied and danced, allowing her to double Rhea and swiftly end the final part 1 map. On part 2 we receive an additional unit with Yuritsa, who has pretty good stats, but more notably Edelgard has become like the best unit in Fire Emblem, period, by obtaining the Amir, giving her access to 6 attacks in a single turn thanks to Raging Storm, and she has also gained some extra defensive stats from reclassing to Armored Lord, but that's less important. On chapter 13, I stride and rally up Edelgard to test the damage of Raging Storm, which is pretty good, but I don't need it on this chapter, as I just dance Edelgard and land a crit on Judith to end the map, and reach level 30, allowing Edelgard to become a Wyvern Lord, allowing me to dump all of my stat boosters on her without regret. On chapter 14, I get really confused because Lysithea isn't here, before Google searching that apparently I killed her earlier. Anyway, after baiting the Lysithea replacements group, I stride, rally Edelgard and then dance her, and use Raging Storm to kill Nadir, and I crit claw to end the map. During the monastery, I got fortunate enough to find a skirmish with these big worm monsters, because if you break them, you receive materials needed to repair Amir. This one map got me 6 of them, allowing for 2 full repairs of Amir. On chapter 15, I beat the whole map, but right at the end I realized I wasn't recording, so I had to do it again. Fortunately, this map is pretty simple. I just clear out the units near the right with combat arts. On the following turn, I just had to stride Edelgard, rally for more damage, dance for more speed, and literally just Raging Storm, Raging Storm, Raging Storm, then finish with a bonk with a steel axe. In the monastery, we now unlock Anna's secret shop, which means Edelgard gets 1 of every stat booster, making her even more overpowered, as she now possesses over 50 strength. And she begins the next map by dominating the initial formation of units, as well as most of the commanders when she uses Raging Storm all the way across the map, and basically just kills everyone. However, I decided to not end the map on this turn, as on the next turn I wanted to break this monster's armor to obtain more Amir repair materials, and I also wanted to use Raging Storm to collect the speed wing in the chest. Then Yuritsa killed Gwendol, ending the chapter. I now soloed a few skirmishes with Edelgard as I wanted her to reach S+ in axes for Axe Fair, and I thought she would get that by next chapter. But it turns out that the final 2 maps are back to back, so this didn't really help. This game's difficulty when you use Edelgard. Get it? It dies. So chapter 17 is yet again pretty easy. Just use turn 1 to set up, then Raging Storm, Raging Storm, Raging Storm, Raging Storm, dance Yuritsa, go for the crit, end the turn with a Brave Axe. Done. On the final map, I do what I always do, rally and stride up Edelgard, kill a paladin, trade her the March Ring, and dance her. Now she reaches Rhea, removes her barrier with a Raging Storm, then she removes her first HP bar with a Raging Storm. With another Raging Storm, she crits down the second HP bar, and her third is taken out by another crit. On Rhea's final HP bar, she actually had enough HP to survive a crit Raging Storm, which I didn't land. Then I attack with a Brave Axe, and Edelgard landed a crit, resulting in Rhea dying. With that done, we have beat the game. Surprisingly, this was much shorter than I expected. As you can see, I cleared the game in about 35 hours, and I expected this to be above 60. My overall opinion on this game hasn't really changed from this playthrough, as I remember there was a chapter where I spent like 2 hours in the monastery for like a 40-minute chapter of gameplay. Before this run, I was an Edelgard believer. She did nothing wrong. But now I understand. She makes this game too easy. Even in a 0% gross run, literally all the planning I put into any unit that was not Edelgard didn't really matter because they stopped doing anything from the time skip onwards. Anyway, like the video if you do, and subscribe if you want to see more. Bye.